Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah C. Gavignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World Collective Energy Share. So lots of really nice, meaty topics for the past several weeks.
That's
Continue,
right.
continue as we go. Yeah, I saw this funny meme on, I don't know, sometime last week, and it was like, okay, well, this next week we have, time change, full moon, Friday 13th. Have a great week.
Yes, I saw that too. In fact, I didn't share it on Facebook, but I shared it in person with some people, and it was just like, really. But I also read, that if it matters, Mercury retrograde is done.
This
So
week.
that should provide some relief this week for those that
Yeah.
believe that
if
that
you if you
influences.
abide if you abide by that, right?
Right.
And so that's
Right.
the funny thing. That actually, it's funny to start off with that because it sort of leads us right into what we want to talk about.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like people freak out about the full moon. They freak out, but actually, full moons and the energies of those that reflect back to us are things for great for like shining the light on a lot of stuff, that we might not have
Right.
looked at, and
Yeah. Even in the darkness.
even in the darkness. And I mean, and last night it was so bright outside.
It was gorgeous.
It
It
was.
was gorgeous. And we're gearing up for a rain event all week, and it was so nice to see the moon rise and peek through the clouds that were coming through, and it was just like, remember, I'm here even
Yeah.
if you can't see me.
Yeah, yeah. We had a clear night, so it was gorgeous. Like I was looking out, we have sliding glass doors in my bedroom, and I could, I mean, it was almost as bright as day, like out on the deck.
Oh, nice.
It was cool. Anyway, so, and by the way, Friday 13th means nothing to me. I actually always think of it sort of as a lucky day because,
Lucky 13, right? Me too.
yeah. So let's see. So to review, right? Victimhood, getting beyond the victimhood, being empathic. Last week we talked about getting beyond the victimhood of, getting stuck in these patterns from, good morning. Good morning. Oh, we got a couple people on with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last week we talked about the getting stuck in the patterns of, what was it?
Well, we talked about the fish bag,
Oh,
the
right.
fish bag, and the way we create our world.
Yes. So if anybody who's listening or watching hasn't watched or listened to, especially the last two episodes before this, go back and do them. Catch up because it's a lot of stuff. Good morning. So, so this is an interesting. So this sort of we talked about Lemuria and Atlantis and getting stuck in that, like having to repeat or like thinking some other time was better or, all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to remember what else we talked about last week because last week was a doozy in terms of shifting stuff. Because
Right.
it was right after that, right around that, all those like conspiracy theory stuff started coming up that we talked about last week.
Right.
A lot of looking at, right? So, and it's really not conspiracy theory, so it's conspiracy theory, but all this stuff is documented, the stuff that came up that we were looking at, right?
Right.
And what has been coming up, so to back up, what was it that we were talking, the fish bags, and how the fish bags is that, it's that focused,
It's your focused reality.
reality, right, of that little part of you, but you're also all the fish bags and outside of the fish bag as much as you're in it, and creating the reality that we choose, right? So then it's stop being victim to that. So the other thing that's been coming up a lot, and this didn't just come up in the past week, but it was very prominent last week. It was like, bam, okay, you got through these two things, now get through this.
Right.
And that started you and I have been talking about this stuff for
Years.
Yeah, it's been years. It's been so like years ago, to sort of give everybody a little bit of a backstory. Years ago, I started getting this message to look at Odessa, right? Like, remember Odessa. And I'm like, and that's like not a word that you think of off the top of your head, right? So
Right.
I got that in meditation and I'm like, what? And then every place I looked at, like the word Odessa would pop up. It was so bizarre. And I think it's funny, wasn't that there was like some kind of a supernatural like TV show too that took place in Odessa, Texas or something. Yeah, like
Probably. I know that Odessa, Texas has popped up a lot in my world, and
right.
it's like I don't, other than being living in Texas, not
Right,
from Texas, but living here,
right.
I don't think about Odessa.
Right. So that word, and then you're like, I'd be watching a movie at the end, be like Odessa Productions. I'm like, okay, this is like, all right, I'll start looking. So the original, the original discussion, so in looking into it originally, there was this whole thing about in World War II, the top level, like that many people can find about Odessa, had to do with the Nazis getting relocated after World War II, in an underground kind of thing, and disappearing, right? But then the
Right.
other part was the files about all the mind control experiments that they did while, during the war and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of stuff, and it's really, honestly, that's all related to. And if anybody has read or heard about the Montauk Project, then what else? The MK Ultra came up last week.
Right.
So basically, it's not even conspiracy theory. It's been proven and shown and admitted to that almost every government of any major country in the world has done mind control experiments on subjects, right?
Exactly.
So
Whoever they chose.
whoever they chose. And so there are people out there who make an entire career off of talking about conspiracy theories and looking under the covers at everything and all that kind of stuff. And there's some really interesting stuff out there. Always, again, connected to your inner guidance and ask, okay, is this for me to know? Is this? And so the whole thing is, we've been talking about getting beyond fear, right? So after we did our thing on Monday, on Thursday, I talked about getting beyond fear as for my individual podcast. And it is connected because, as we talked about all this inner guidance and all this kind of stuff, and listening to the inner guidance over anything else, then it's getting us beyond fear, right?
Right.
So now that sort of takes us into the field, get everybody sort of caught up. But it's funny, as I said before we got online, I have 2 pages of notes from our call on Friday, and I don't even understand what we meant. But the importance of all that mind control stuff is this. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Absolutely, that's going on. And
I mean, even if you take it down to the you know most benign level that you can think of is television.
yep.
And the commercials. You're not enough without this product. You have to have this to feel good. You're depressed. You're not successful enough. You need something that you don't already have, and you need to give me your money so you can have that, so you can be that.
Right. You're too fat, you're too skinny, you're not this, you're not smart enough, you're not educated enough. You don't have enough prescription medications, so you obviously need this drug.
Right. It makes all those work so much better.
Right. And so, and that is the simple, and people say, oh, well, that's marketing. Well, let me tell you, as somebody who was a marketing professional in corporate for 17 years, and I'm not talking about sales, I'm talking about marketing. What marketing does is they do consumer behavior studies and psychology studies on what causes people to react. And everything that they do, the advertising, the messages, everything that they do is developed based on psychology of how to control or influence people to do something that benefits me, right? That's what that's all about.
Right.
And so, okay, everybody knows that. Except now we are getting so barraged by it, right? Not just TV, on our phones, on our computers. I mean, seriously, if you don't turn off, what many people don't understand is if you don't turn off on your social media apps, if you don't turn off the mic, it actually hears you talking like Instagram, I think, whatever, and it translates it to ads.
Exactly.
And that took me a while to figure out, because I'd be talking to somebody about something and be like, you know what I haven't seen in a long time? Like blah, 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 like, oh no, blueberry muffins, right? And then the next time I'd go on my phone on whatever I was looking at, I would see an ad for blueberry muffins. And it was like, oh, isn't that interesting? And after about the 5th time.
Isn't that timely?
Isn't that timely? And after like the fifth or sixth time that happened, I was like, wait a second, because like some of the things were really obscure. And so there's all that, and it's not, and it's not, and it's like, oh, for the good of how convenient it is and whatever. But we've
And it
also
drives the economy, and it establishes competition and markets and things like that.
Right. And that is on the truly marketing side and the true capitalist side. That's the truth. But you also have things like in the news, right? And you have people who are, and this is the truth. We're not even going to go into, getting fear-based, but there are small groups and factions in control around the world that have the majority of the money, because what have we created in this reality is that money equals power.
Right.
Behind the scenes, people have heard the Rothschilds and all that kind of stuff, whatever. And they do a lot of things to manipulate the public and how they react. They do that in Wall Street. Like, how many companies I used to work for Wall Street years ago. It is amazing how connected and obsessive they are about the news and about what goes out and what information gets allowed out to the public.
Right.
You want them to panic and drop all their stock in this, and then that drops, that lowers all the prices. So there's all this kind of stuff. There's all this interrelation, and so there's not that's not bad in itself. And the thing is, bad is judgment anyway. But the thing is, we have other elements that show, right, that we are being controlled, or we allowing ourselves at some level to be controlled now through frequencies, right? We have the EMF stuff, we have the 5G stuff, there's something that we came across last week. They were talking about the satellites transmitting certain frequencies to shift certain things. And, we were talking about that. And the key again is to say, well, but by the way, that's me. That's my fish bag as much as this one, right? And so my choice is to either be in this fish bag and allow that, or to not allow that. And there's no fear. It's not going, oh my God, I'm going to wear I'm going to wear my metal hat.
Put aluminum foil on the windows.
Right. And I'm going to walk around in a Faraday cage.
Right.
But, the thing is, where do we get to on this? So this is where we sort of came into this discussion. And the funny part was, I started looking at all this, so much came in last week, not just in the 3D, but in the other non-physical, to say, why bother? Like, what's the purpose?
Right. So, take money out of the equation and we're all the same level of power. What's the point? If it's not for money and power, there's nothing else there.
Right. And then we were saying, so what's the purpose? You have all the money and power in the world, and what? Like what? And when we take out the drive, and that's part of what we've been getting this guidance about, is not having the egoic, feeling of lack, right? Because when we know we're whole, right? And we're not lacking anything, well, then nobody can really have any power over us.
Exactly.
And so I started thinking about, so what's the purpose? What's the purpose of the game? Because it's really like a big chess game then. Oh, well, I want to control all these people and make them do this, or make them, submissive to this. And it's like, okay, so when you get that for everybody, then what's the purpose? Like, what's the fun? What do we create free will for? What do we create our little fish bags for? And so then that's when you came up with a suggestion of, what if it was sort of like this? Now I get that. I was like, what was
it's that, we've talked in the past about how, to expand outward is to go inward.
Yes.
So if we go to the extreme depths of separation, going in, down, whatever directional thing works for you, to come all the way out the other side, to push all the way through, to come back to that exploration. And break through to the other side to actually, yes, see it all for everything that we are.
In acceptance, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Without judgment.
Because then when you get to that place of acceptance, that's where I got to, which was, and like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
you can do it, you cannot do it, right?
And I think part of one of the steps that we had written down in the very beginning was, don't judge the chaos that we see.
right. Be a calm in the chaos. Yep.
Right. And by judging that chaos, it allows that fear. It allows that um, whether it's, I don't want to participate.
Right.
You cannot participate by being nurtured by the chaos, or being strengthened, energized.
Right. Or just be fluid to it where it doesn't affect you in any way.
Exactly. Right.
Right. Or I like that, like changing it, the energy to say, oh, okay, well then that just energizes me. Except then you don't want to start believing that you need the chaos to be energized, right?
Right. Right.
Which I know a lot of people who are sort of stuck in that cycle too.
But a better thought, I'd say better because that's judgment. Another thought is it completes me, which I think that feels really good.
Or it's just a part of my completion. Instead of it completes me, it's
right.
just it's
the acknowledgement of it.
It's a part of my wholeness.
Exactly. That's it.
I like
That's
wholeness
the point.
the completion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wholeness. Because, we looked at, and then again, then you take the judgment away because you're like, okay, right? So we can look through the eyes of somebody else and see what they're doing. I can go into their fish bag, right? We can in that fluidity of connectivity and wholeness, right? What we had started talking about was, what was the purpose and the whole mind control thing, whatever. And then we thought, well, did it start out like as a plan of, keeping things flowing a certain way, for a higher purpose, and that sort of got out of control because then the ego really like kicked in and became sort of became like a cancer.
Right.
And I think that like in wisps of that, like last week we talked about Lemuria and Atlantis and everything else, right? The romanticism around that. And like the other time, these are coming back and they were great. They fell for a reason. They fell for a reason, or else we would still be there, right? And that was for that exploration of that deeper levels of separation. And to do that was there needed to be some kind of egoic, deeply separated experience that pulled it into a different level of density, right?
Right.
Which,
absolutely.
When I translate that translates in the ego to a really crappy time for us.
Exactly. And we can judge it for that.
Right. Or we
can accept and say, we created this.
Right.
As part of our exploration of our wholeness.
Right. And our fish bags.
Right. And our fish bags can just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, have we peaked in remembrance and crashed? We have. And most of the time we've crashed through actions of the ego and separation. And it's not that was bad, because it was another lesson in that separation and density, right? To a different facet of it, to shift us to a different direction, right? We've crashed to a point where we've had to evolve. We've chosen to evolve all over again because of all those kind of things. There's evidence, and it's what I love about that is we've known that unconsciously, and yet science up until not too long ago was like, oh no, we had the one evolution, and now they're like, oh, wait a second.
Right. Like, okay, this is the oldest, this is the oldest human we found. Oh, okay. No, now this is the
right. I know, like, now wait, now they're not finding like evidence of intelligent technological societies like a million years ago or something crazy.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, maybe not a million, maybe it was like 500,000, but it was like a long time ago, more so than they ever thought existed, right? So Anyway, so then what's the purpose, right? Because then we also, then it's sort of defeatist. The ego starts saying, well, then what's the purpose of fighting it? What's the purpose of this? And it's not fighting it. It is accepting it. There's a difference.
Oh, there's a huge difference.
And there's not, and I'm not saying allowing it, I'm saying accepting it, to say, I see it as it is, and I choose to play or I choose not to play.
Right. I choose it on my terms.
Yes. And that makes a huge difference in energy. Right. That's what we started getting to on Friday. It was like, oh yeah.
Right.
Right. And the darkness, like we have talked about that, going through to the other side. And the thing is, I think every time we've crashed have been those, well, let's see how deep we can get into this before we crash.
Right. Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
And so it's sort of like, okay, well, now we've done this a number of times. Now we're sort of almost getting into the habit of doing that. So now what to do differently, right, is to shift into this next version, right? Mm-hmm. Without doing that and starting all over again. Because now we're actually, okay, we've learned these lessons. Now it's time for us to move forward into another set that are
right,
much different in vibration. So I'm just looking at my notes here. So, and the reason for, and so then when we can look at it that way, you know, we had a period that looks a lot like ancient Egypt, but it wasn't ancient Egypt. It was like another way longer time ago, where we really did explore the darkness in a very deep way.
Right.
That is very buried for many of us. And it's funny because every time I've brought it up in, you know, in our conscious groups and our retreats and stuff like that, it always like brings up a lot of bleh for people. But it's like, here's the thing. The clues we left for ourselves, the understanding has been the clues that we left for ourselves are in plain sight. How to do this, how to shift in a different way, whatever. And they're in plain sight in the darkest parts of who we are. So we will never see them if we judge the darkest parts of who we are, but instead accept them as part of the wholeness and then be able to see everything equally. Because it's the same thing about like the mind control and this and that. I mean, you want to talk about that's exploring the depths of darkness? Watch a couple of videos on MK Ultra.
I know.
The Montauk Project. Those are just two of very many. So, and it's not to judge. Like, and it was funny because when I watched the videos last week, I was just like, yeah, those are that's it. That's what it is.
Yep.
All over again. And now it's, okay, we don't have to do that. We can just remember.
Right. We don't have to have this experience again. We just have to remember that we've had this experience.
And to say it's okay.
Right. All without judgment.
Yeah. To say, okay, yes, challenging to the ego, very challenging to the ego. Very happy I let another part of me be a fish bag that did that experience.
Right. Right.
But, you know, it's, yeah, and it's funny because, like I said, I've seen, like in looking at all this last week, it was just like how many people have had, they have whole careers on talking about this stuff of the conspiracy theory, the mind control, the government, you know, subversiveness and all that kind of stuff. Right. And so it's like, okay, interesting. The ego loves to grasp onto that dirty laundry, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I mean, really, I mean, and there's something really sexy about it to us, right? Like to be horrified about something. That's part of that whole exploration.
I mean, if that weren't the case, there wouldn't be horror movies.
And right, horror movies. And why do you think these people make a lot of money writing books? Because people are like, I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna read it. Damn it.
I'm gonna immerse myself.
And safely. Judge it and, you know, be horrified by it, you know. It was like, even last night I was talking to my daughter about how she goes, oh God, I screw myself so many times, you know. She lives by herself at college, you know, and she goes, even though I'm on the second floor, she goes, you know, I'll read something about like a murder mystery. She goes, and then, you know, every creak in the middle of the night, it's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I did the same thing. I said, the funny thing is when I lived by myself years ago, I had a first floor apartment with woods behind it. And during that period of time, I read a ton of serial killer books, I remember. And it would be like, I'd be reading until like 12, because I would be right before bed. I'd read until like, 11:30 or so. And then I'd turn off the lights and I would
Right. Right. And then really personally explore that story.
Right. And we love that. Right.
Right.
But the thing is to say, okay, I see it as it is. I see it as part of that exploration, but it's still, what is in the dark is still me.
Right.
What goes boom in the night? The serial killer, the murderer, the alien, the government subversive operations, that's all me.
Right.
And how cool, how
am I
that we are, right? And doing that. And to say, okay, but we don't have to, and now we can do it differently. All right, we did this. We've done this to such a full degree, and I think we fulfilled that, that whole like need to explore it, right?
Right. We've checked that box.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's the thrill of doing anything new, right? When you do something new, the first time you do it, it's like this huge adrenaline rush, right? And then you do it again and it's like still really cool. And then about the 100th time you do it, you're like, cool.
Well, and you've gotten all your friends to do it with you. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, everybody's doing it now.
Yeah. Okay. So now what?
Right. What's next?
I got that. And yeah, my husband and I got into a conversation about that on this topic last week. And we were talking, I said, yeah, he was like, yeah, well, the thing is, we have explored this entire, experience. We have explored this entire experience through lack, the perception of lack, right?
Right.
And so why we have changed the whole basis of equality of our value based on money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, has been, oh, if I only made this much money, I would be happy.
Right.
If I only had this much money, I would be happy. So then everybody focuses on doing all this stuff with that they think they'll explore that makes,
and they sacrifice everything else for that.
Right. And then they get there and it's like my husband said, he goes like, and then it's like, oh, I want $1 million. I want $1 million. He's like, and then you get there and then you're like, well, okay, great. Yeah. And then for 5 minutes, you're all excited. And then you're like, oh, but look at all these other millionaires. And now I'm like at the bottom of the barrel
of the millionaires.
Now I have to go up in rank here so that I'm, better and have more. Right. And it gets more. And then it's like, okay, well then billionaire becomes the, and it's like, and then you get there and it's like, okay. And then, you see, this is where you see stuff like mind control experiments, all these weird, bizarre things that people get horrified about in bed. And it's like, well, because people get to then they get to a place of, I'm still looking for that wholeness that I don't feel like I have inside of me. Right.
Right.
And because I don't feel like I have that, and I continue to explore it externally and put my valuation externally, then I'm never going to be saturated.
You'll never attain it.
I'll never feel fulfilled. So now it's time to shift that around to say, oh, how about if I already know that I'm whole and I can still create in separation, right?
Right. I can have it all.
Right? How much fun could that be? Right? And then we say, oh, okay, we're done with this. And then we get to a place, The Good Place. You watched The Good Place, right?
Right.
Did you watch the end of it?
Not yet.
No. Gotta hurry up and watch the end of it. But there's this thing, and there is this thing, because they finished the show.
Right.
And if anybody hasn't watched it, it's a great show, The Good Place, on NBC. I think it's been on. I think you can get the things on Hulu.
Right.
And so, anyway, so their thing is about the good place, right? So I guess the equivalent of what people would consider heaven or whatever, right? And so basically in the good place, they could do anything they want. They can explore anything they want. There's no time. So they could spend however they go through these different doors. And then they're like, oh, I can go do this. I can do this. And then at some point they're like, okay, I've done it all. Okay, now what? Well, now it's time to move on. Now it's time to let go of even needing those experiences anymore.
Right.
Because you're like, okay, I'm good. Now I'm ready to go back to source and wholeness as I am in my wholeness.
Right.
And create differently the next time, or create something else, or don't, or,
We're out of doors.
Yeah. And the ego gets terrified of that, like so
Right.
Frightened is the word that came to mind. So frightened, because it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? We'll cease to exist. And it's like, nope, I will always exist because everything here is my existence.
Right.
And beyond that, right? So where does that take us for today?
I don't know. That last thing felt really good though.
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
little starburst.
Right. I think it's just acceptance of where we are, as in we are the controllers as well as the controlled
Yes.
in this scenario.
Yep.
And that just,
What if we complete the whole lesson of control?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And just
I see a lot of boxes being checked right there.
I know, it's like done.
Yeah, that feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel that one filtering all the way down into the physical.
Oh wow. Yeah, that almost makes me not even want to talk anymore. Like, okay. Oh, there's the yawn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Completing and resolving all lessons of control.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Man.
I know. Okay. That's it. Let's go and do that, shall
Yeah,
we?
absolutely.
Anybody listening or watching, all you got to do is close your eyes, and this is live or recorded. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just be open to receive. And we go out there and do this all together. Ready? Well, there is a lot of resistance to that one.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Go ahead.
I was like, oh my God, like right around me, my cat started scratching like insistently on the door. I have like noise going out there. I have this going on, but then out there, energetic, it was like all these things, like it was almost like all these kids on the playground stopped and they're like, "What are you doing?"
In the beginning, I saw it was like the end of a play, and all the characters come out, and they take off their makeup or whatever, and it's like the the bad people are laughing, and you know, the victims are all like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that's over, and everybody's laughing. It's like the cast party, and
Yeah.
then it's like, and then they look out at the audience, and the audience is like, no, keep going, keep going. We liked this, keep going. And they were like, no, it's done. And it was like once everybody got on board, everything was just so peaceful.
Yes. Yeah. But it took a while for that. But when we finally got there, it was like, oh, there it is. There it is.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it's like everybody settled in, and then every now and then there'd be, but, and it's like, oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that felt really good. At the end, it was funny because it was very different in how much there was like, I had to mute myself and turn my camera off to open the door because my cat would like tear a hole in the carpet if I did. Like she was making this noise. I'm like, then I got this, and I got that, and I was like, oh. Came back and I was just like, you know what? I don't care. Y'all go and do what you need to do or whatever.
Right.
Oh, this one's going to be really interesting to see how that resolves. Because there was all the butts were like, oh, but this will fall apart and that will fall apart. And it's like, but that's the idea.
Right. And what do I do with this? I've spent so much energy creating this.
Yeah.
Right.
What's that for, you know? Oh, all right, everyone. Well, that was fabulous. Well, this week that would be the focus for us is allowing the lessons of control and and victimhood. Let's just throw victimhood in there because victim is part of control.
Absolutely. Right.
So throw it all in there and keep that in that intention of creation, your creation of that's all resolved, completed,
right,
done. Don't have to do it anymore.
Finding that peace.
Yeah, that feels really good now. So
that feels amazing.
All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah C. Avignoni
signing off on this week's Ascended World. Have a good one.